Welcome to Unregulated Leadership. I am one of your hosts, Ashley Parrish, with Lavanya Douglas and Latoya Johnson. We are three William James doctoral candidates.
And we're all in.
So welcome to our show today. We have with us a special guest. His name is Dr. Enin Rudel, and he's going to talk to us about his journey in leadership, his road at William James College, and tell us a little bit about his research. So welcome, Dr. Rudel. We have claps happening.
Thank you.
Okay. So listen, just tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us about your journey in leadership.
Yeah, so I think for me, that dates back to right after undergrad, because I literally landed in a leadership role, shortly after graduating. In fact, my first job out of college, I found myself in an executive role, overseeing 75 locations for a youth development program, all around Boston, based in the Boston area. So it was a lot of learning on the job, and I can share with you all. I was the first Black male that this organization ever had in an executive role. And at the time, was the only person of color working for the organization. And I was like 24 at the time. Yeah. And so there was a lot of, it's like building a plane and flying it at the same time. Right. And so having to, manage a whole lot, and that incidentally would be one of many. Unfortunately, I've had to become accustomed to being one of the only folks at the table that look like me. And so, that's the beginning of my journey. But throughout my trajectory, looking back from now to then, that's kind of how it's been. So there's a lot there. I mean, I think when I think of my leadership journey, you have different parts, right? You have the actual role or position I was occupying at that time, but then you also add that layer of gender, race, social identity on top of all that. So it's leading while Black, right? Leading while being a Black male. So there's a lot there, and I'm happy to kind of answer any questions that you all might have based on that little snippet, little overview.
So my question is, that's difficult, right? So how did you deal with that emotionally, as coming in as this Black man, the only Black man, how did emotionally, because I think sometimes we get in these spaces and we are just trying to do our best, we're learning as we're going, but we still have this emotional feelings that are happening being the only person in this space, still trying to show up as, without being judged or without being like, how was that for you?
That was probably the most difficult part. And actually in listening to you pose that question, a specific scenario came to mind for me of, I must have been in that role that I just described. I must have been in that role maybe 3-4 months. And I had an incident where, I felt I had been disrespected. And at the time, didn't yet have I'll just say this, I wasn't as polished as I would eventually become, right? And so at this point, it's learning how to advocate for myself and do it in a way where I don't lose my job. So the translation of that is, I sat in conflict a lot, because it's almost like, okay, well, what do you say? And how do you say it? I can't just, yes, this person literally walked in my office, and, my feeling was, had I been not a person of color, this interaction may not have went down the way that it did. but this person felt comfortable being able to just sort of walk in and talk to me any kind of way. And so to go back to your question, managing instances like that was really, really difficult. So the first half of my career emotionally was like a roller coaster, you know, because there was frustration and agitation, but I had to learn, you know, when you're a 6'1", 250-pound bald Black male, you got to be careful with how you show up in the space. Be careful what you say. And so I think that be careful what you say and who you say it to, you know? So yeah, it was really difficult. It was really difficult, and it continues to be, because as I move up, now there's more layers, right? That I'm having to sort of learn how to, you know, push through and navigate.
I can only imagine. I want to know if you have any words of wisdom or advice for new leaders or young leaders. I think the intersectionality of being maybe the youngest person in the office and a person of color is one that's being experienced more and more, just based off of the influence from the gig economy and how all these startups are popping up, particularly in cities in and around like Boston, large metropolitan places. Do you have any words of wisdom or advice for young leaders of color who maybe don't get the intimate interactions, or they don't have a safe place to go and find the advice that they need?
Yeah. So I think that's a really great question, because as we all know, mentorship is a problem for particularly leaders of color or employees of color. You know, simply stated, just finding folks that we can connect with in that way. So, you know, one thing that I would say, what surfaces for me is the importance of self-care, the importance of having an activity or you know, something that you can engage in that sort of helps restore you. You know, I think for me, that's where my relationships became even more important. You know, so like that network of social support is really what got me through. So like at the end of the day, it was common for me to be on my way home, and next thing you know, I'm taking a detour and I'm going to a friend's house to just sit and just connect for a little bit, just because I needed that after you know, a really long day. So I would say you know, focus on building your social support, your network of social support. You know, look for those activities of self-care, and take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Make sure that you're getting the sleep that you need. Make sure that you're only going to be able to bring out what you put in. So how you eat, how you carry yourself, all of that matters.
Nice.
All of that matters.
I have a couple questions, but I'm going to try to rein it in. I got two burning ones, but I'll start with my first one. And so listening to what you're saying in your experience. And so I try to give people some grace, because I like this term. I made it up. You can borrow it if you like. It's like, I call like innocent ignorance. And it's just like, it's those people, they say something crazy and it's just like, bless your heart. You know, I'm just like, you are so lucky that I have some emotional intelligence and this is not a trigger point. Because sometimes for example, I went to visit a family, very small town family, me being Mexican. They asked someone I was traveling with, like, oh, does she eat Chinese food? Because I know she's Mexican. This is something that, you know, she's into. And bless their heart, they were genuinely trying to make me feel welcome. And I was just like, oh, honey, like, this is what happens if you never leave your town. You know what I mean? I'm just like, I considered them to be in the innocent ignorance, heart pure as gold, but God love them, you know, need to go out, get yourself a passport and learn a little bit about the world. With that being said, have you had those situations where it's just like, this is innocent ignorance, or this is, I need to have a conversation? What do you think?
Yeah. And as I progressed, as I moved through my trajectory, I got better at recognizing those kinds of moments, because I have to acknowledge that young me was accustomed to just telling folks off, just being like, you're ignorant, right? But of course, there's consequences for what you say, right?
Yeah.
So I had to learn how to navigate those scenarios. I can recall a time, and at this point now, fast forwarding a little bit. So I'm now in my master's program. I'm a therapist by trade. So at this point, I'm in my master's program, and I'm doing my internship inpatient psych unit in a large city hospital. My supervisor and I are sitting and we're talking, and I'm telling him about my background, and I'm half French. So my father is of West Indian descent, and so we have family in France. This gentleman, my supervisor, is going to look at me and say, "I didn't realize that you could be Black and be French." Wow, I didn't realize that. And so I'm sitting and I'm looking at him, and like, we're eating lunch, and I'm trying to keep it light. I'm trying to not whatever, but like the way that he said it, recognizing again, intent, versus impact, right?
It's
So
like, bless your heart.
Right. Because he genuinely did not think Black people could be born in France or identify as French. This was legit.
Yeah.
That's
Gosh.
good.
Yeah, I've like I said, someone asked me if I eat Chinese food because I'm Mexican, or even though I'm Mexican, it's just like, I was like, oh my goodness, you are genuinely trying to make me feel welcome. I'm like,
yeah.
Oh wow. I also eat Italian food and sushi. And I remember this like same group of folks I asked if oh, is there a sushi place around? Would you guys like to try? They've never tried sushi before, just to try to really paint the picture of just the sweetness of this little family. And they just said, Ashley, I found a sushi place, 2 hours away. We went on a little road trip and all this yada, and they were just loved it. They were so excited, they literally felt like they were in Japan. And they're like, Ashley, what made you start eating sushi? As if like I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea. Whatever made me start eating pizza and cheeseburgers, I've been eating it since I was a child. I don't, no idea. But for these folks, this was genuinely a very brand new experience.
But do you find like those opportunities are opportunities to educate people? So while it's innocent,
totally.
But I'm gonna still educate you. I'm gonna still share some information with you that you might not know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because we don't want you to stay ignorant. But
oh no,
there's nobody else that ever again. And let me tell you why. Right? Like
it's an opportunity for everyone to excel in that conversation. I get to help you to be more educated, and you get to stop being at the current level of what you are.
Exactly. And you're gonna help me because I'm gonna practice saying it appropriately and not going on. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna practice how to educate you in a way that you can receive it, right? Where you're not offended. I'm not offended.
It's tactfulness.
I want you to be able, but you have to practice tactfulness. It doesn't just come, right? We have to intentionally be
heavens.
Right? Like
It's so true.
I think there's also be those moments as people of color where you are just exhausted, right? Like I can only imagine, like Dr. Rudel at 24 coming in, and then you're in the workforce for 30, 40 years, and I'm sure still experiencing people in the innocently ignorant category. And although your approach and potentially even the tactics have changed, and how you address them, it's still exhausting. As someone who works in higher education, I find myself really at points just wanting to tap out of the conversation. Have, you know, you feel like, oh man, like how many times, how many people, how many ways can I say this? And how are we still here? So I don't know how we get beyond that, how we restore ourselves to a point where we can come back and have those teachable moments. But I also 100% acknowledge that sometimes you need not be the person teaching because it can be so emotionally taxing.
Yeah. No, it's emotionally, it's mentally and emotionally taxing. And so I go back to, for me, what that looks like, to go back on a comment that I made earlier, it's taking care of my body, taking care of myself, right? So that I have the stamina to get through my day, right? And to manage all that I'm attempting to manage at the same time, right? So I mean, I think a few things: use of emotional intelligence, awareness around what's surfacing for you when you're in these situations, and making mental notes around sort of, okay, this is how I felt. What can I do to, what sorts of outlets can I identify for this energy? Because what we shouldn't do is continue to sit with all of this, pent up frustration. It's got to get out.
I totally, yeah. You said something earlier about mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
When did you, or did you have a 24 mentor? Did your mentors change as you went through your careers? Like, when did you know having a mentor, someone that you needed to look up to, someone that was further than you, so that can actually speak into your life and experience the things that you experienced? When did you recognize like that was something that was really important for you to have?
Months into that first role, I recognized it for what it was. I was overwhelmed, but didn't want to admit it. And so what I did was, the organization that I worked for used to partner with other organizations around funding. And so we used to have these executive boards. And I went to one of the gentlemen that was on the executive board, who was an older Black male. And I reached out to him. So I went to meet with him about something business related. But then after that meeting, took some time to build that connection. And he actually would end up becoming my first mentor. And so what that looked like for me were these sort of like bi-weekly check-ins where we would just go to lunch and we would just talk, and I could share with him, off the record, what I was experiencing, and he would coach me through it. And so I recognized the need for mentorship. But I'll share with you all now, what I'm going through now is, I don't even know how to say this, and I don't know how it's going to sound, but I'm just going to put it out there: needing different mentors for the different stages, right? So that gentleman was phenomenal at getting me, at teaching me at that level. Okay, right now, for all of us on this call, right? You start getting to that doctoral level, you now need, to ideally, your mentors sort of mirror the stage that you're in, potentially, and so you can actually look back on the various stages, and there's always been like that person, which is why even something simple like on my DP, for my acknowledgements, I had to thank so many people, because there were so many people that not just helped me with the DP, but helped me I started with my associates, kicked out of high school right before senior year, so I started a new school as a senior, right? told by my guidance counselor, college likely wasn't for me, and I needed to maybe consider, a trade or a job or something like that. So, I know we like to throw around the whole started from the bottom and now, you know what I
Oh,
mean?
we
Well,
did.
yeah, well, legit,
Profit trade.
yeah, man, yeah,
So many people have that story though.
yeah.
Like, what happened in your mind that you was like, that's not going to be me? What you're saying, speaking over my life, is not going to be me.
Yeah. You know what? To have another human being sit across from you and tell you your future, I wish I could find that dude. I wish I could find him. I would love to sit across from him now, and not in a, I don't mean that in like I don't wish any ill intent on him at all. But I mean, like, just that was a very powerful, I'll say this, that was a defining moment for me, because when I did reach my first, so I had to go to a junior college, not only did I get, not only was I successful academically, but I became like an ambassador for the school. I was an RA, I wrote for the paper, I sat on the leadership board, and I just took off and never looked back. You know what I mean? Because in my mind is like, what he did was he kind of lit a fire, because which I didn't even see coming. Yeah. So I'm kind of grateful that he said that, I guess.
So we need to find him to say thank you. That's what we need
to do.
I do background investigation. So if you want me to find him so we can say thank you, we can. Just let me know. So give me his name.
Actually, come on
you know
out.
What I mean?
Listen, I will find him so we can invite him to the
Yeah.
show and tell him thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
heaven.
Okay, so let's get into our next question. The next question we want to kind of talk to you about is your road at William James. We know that you started off as a student, now you're a professor. So we want to hear a little bit about that journey.
Okay, I think that's a really great question. And I'm going to put it out there. I was never just a student. So from day one, I got involved. I got involved in the William James community. I did it because I wanted to do it, and I did a lot for the program for free. You know what I mean? So like legit, there were like, everything from marketing to admissions to whatever it was. I tried my best to sort of make inroads. So I say that to say that I didn't just one day fall into this role. You know what I mean? Like, it was creating workshops and running workshops, for, at residency, right? As a student, or, so it was an interesting journey. And you know what? Let me back up for a minute. Cause I have to touch on this. When I showed up for, the first residency, so semester 1, year 1, and I look around the room, and there was only one Black male. And so I remember walking over to him, because for me, I did what, most Black folks do, right?
We go
you know what I mean? So I go over and, I'm talking about Omar Ba. You guys know Omar?
I do not.
Omar? Nah? Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, Omar actually left, so I don't think because he left probably like a year before I did. But I was very, very grateful for that. But it underscored the importance of being mindful of perception, because I became increasingly aware of my Blackness and increasingly aware of the environment, right? So everything from how I present, what I say, how I sound, how I show up on a discussion board, that stuff mattered. And I knew that, and I think often we don't ask to be put in these situations, but we often find ourselves in these situations. Like I didn't ask for it, but I understood the responsibility of looking like me and trying my very best to perform at a high level, and internalizing it and giving my all to the program every semester, being active, so I made professors work just as hard as I did. If I had a question, I'm emailing. You know what I mean? I made my advisor work. If I didn't get, why I'm taking certain classes, I'm reaching out. So I really found meaningful, productive ways to engage with the system, and I can honestly say from day one, I used it as an opportunity to make inroads and build connections. But like I said, I believe anyway, like I did it for the right reasons. And yeah, I mean, you guys know there's a lot of it's like a roller coaster.
Yes, we did.
It's hard.
It's hard. Not easy.
It's not easy.
Something like that.
It is not easy. Yeah. And I worked full time through it.
It sounds like you are good at growing where you're planted.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point.
I like to describe that. Yeah.
Good job, Ashley.
I'm envisioning a plant, just wherever the plant is planted, it just grows wherever. I love that. You wanna? I'm gonna put that on our t-shirt.
Another t-shirt we're gonna make.
I love it. Yeah.
I guess a follow-up to that that analogy that Ashley gave us is and I think this is true of all graduate study, specifically at the doctoral level, is how did you take care of yourself during the process, knowing like all of the what I would consider weight and pressure that you just described, as being, a person of color in a pretty, I think William James is doing its best to be as inclusive and diverse in admissions and selection as possible. You can't make up the candidate pool, right?
Right.
But how did you take care of yourself? I know my own cohort, which is just a few behind yours, has no men of color at all. So I'm thinking about where that camaraderie, that maybe collegial academic network happens, and where you go to restore in that realm.
Mm-hmm. So my cohort, as is the case with a lot of cohorts, we got close early on. We became close early, and we served each other, one another. We were one another's thought partners. We were a source of support for one another. We would often we're working on papers from different locations, but we're on the phone, or we're on Zoom sharing our screen, talking about what's coming up for us as we're sort of working our way through whatever the assignment was. There was also, for me, understanding this one thing: perfection does not exist. So at a certain point, I had to make my peace with understanding that there's always going to be something in this program that needs to get done, right? But it very, very much is a marathon. It's not a race. If you try to run it like a race, you're going to end up causing more harm than good, right? So early on for me, it was pacing. It was pacing myself. It was understanding that, I think pride could be a double-edged sword, and so I had to kind of come to terms with, maybe every post wasn't, stellar, but if I included the 2 references and did whatever was asked, get it up there, move on. You know what I mean? And that's kind of, yeah, man, because at the end of the day, here's the thing: since I've been out, nobody asks what my GPA in a doc program was.
Right.
100%.
Nobody asks. So what did you get in this class, or what did you get in that class? No. What matters is I'm sitting here as Dr. Rudel, and I'm looking at 3 future doctors, right? Like, doesn't look at this.
Thank you for acknowledging that. No, I'm just kidding. No, you are prophesizing the truth. I love that.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Just something's got to give. Something has got to give.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that was the single biggest lesson that I learned. Because okay, to that point, right? So the master's, when I got my master's, I was working full time. I was in school full time. I did the master's program in 2 years, right? So for me in the doc program, after year 2, it felt like it should be over because, obviously the master's program was 2 years. Then realizing I was just at the midpoint, that was like soul crushing, like to actually pick your head up and be like, wow, man, I've come so far, but I still got like a whole other half to go. So like, I think it's important to just stay in the trenches, take it one day at a time. Don't manage stress. Don't let stress manage you. Reach out when you need the support. There's no shame in it, and don't lose sight of the end game. Because that's what matters most, right? Winning that championship, that's what matters most.
That's right.
You made a great point about when you talk about your cohort. Listen, love mine. Okay.
Yeah.
The whole class is phenomenal. From year 1. Like the support that you get from your colleagues and the relationships that you build, the connections that you build is so important to help you be successful, because in the area that they are strong in, you may not be, and then they support you, and vice versa. What you're strong in, they support you. So really building healthy connections in all areas of life,
Absolutely.
right? It's super important.
Absolutely.
I truly believe people need people, but you need the right people, right? You need the right people.
Yeah.
Not just any people, because that might not work out, right?
Yeah.
Great point.
I dig that.
So, did you have a question, Ashley? I saw you.
It's kind of a question. If you got another question.
No, I was going to move into the research. So if you have a question about this, go ahead.
I don't. I just have a question in general that's not on topic, but I'd rather you go with your question.
Well, no, go ahead, girl. What you got?
Okay, so Dr. Rudel, I got a question. Okay, so this is unregulated leadership, okay? So that means we're a little unpolished, and we're going to say some things that may not everyone agrees with. So here it goes. Ready? Let's dive in. So how like Nelson Mandela really was big on being the last to speak, and love that. But the thing is that like sometimes you don't always get a chance to speak if you were the last to speak. And as a minority, it's sometimes important to speak up quicker than you would like to. So for example, I know this is going to shock you, but get ready. I'm a very talkative person, and I have gotten in trouble for talking my entire life. So that being said, when I started to hear, Nelson Mandela and Simon Sinek talking about like being, listen to everyone talk and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, okay, shut up and listen more. Don't be the last to, don't be the first one to talk, Ashley. They're literally talking about you. So I'm like, okay, cool. But then I realized when I started doing that mess, I never got a chance to talk. And then I'm like, who cares? You know what? Like I talk so damn much, or sorry, edit that. I talk so darn much. Like I'll have, I'll probably, I'll get a chance to talk regardless. And then I realized, well, now I'm a female and I'm Mexican. So now I've got to talk. So I'm just like, what do I do? Doing like this little angel's like, you need to talk more because you're representing female Mexicans. And this little bird was like, angel's like, you need to shut up and be, and put on your listening ears. I'm just like, Heaven to Betsy, what do I do? So I don't know what my question is, but that's what I am dealing with.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I that resonates with me in a very real way. I was, so in my final semester, actually days before my DP, before my colloquium, George Floyd was murdered. So I was still in the system as a student when that went down. and when the volume started to get turned up on what we're experiencing now, right? And I found myself in a really interesting place in that I'm not going to say the first time in the William James system, because I have been vocal on some other stuff. We had some stuff around race that came up about a year and a half prior to that. But certainly I found myself in a really tough spot, because I'm now having conversations with people, and their perceptions and their realities are starting to surface. And these are people who were close to me. And I'm starting for the first time, like, realizing, like, we've been cool this whole time, but we have very, very different viewpoints on, on not just race, but on
social issues,
the gravity of what. Yeah. And so I think, for me, it was having to turn the volume up and be vocal, and make sure that, because I think you touched on this. It's not just for me, but for, those that look like me, that are either coming into the program, or maybe were already in the program at that time, but like recognizing that it was really important that I don't just sit on my hands and say nothing, but that I engage in these types of conversations. So yeah.
So it sounds like you are also talking about identifying, like, when, like what those values are, and when you have your own personal moral obligation to speak up versus just listening, when maybe you would like to, as a Black man, you would like to just absorb and listen, but it's like, sometimes it's like, I gotta speak up and say something, because I might be the only one you're ever going to have this conversation with. And you can have some psychological safety to have some conversations, especially if you're in a room with people who are, innocently ignorant.
Right. We don't always have the luxury of saying nothing. And if I've learned one thing, right?
Right, I do.
Sometimes inactivity is just as harmful, if not more, than activity itself, right? So choosing to do nothing can sometimes be just as damaging. So, I've throughout my time, and I'm recognizing that I didn't touch on this, so I just want to back up for a minute. But when I mentioned that some stuff around race came up, that forced not just my cohort, but the cohorts around us, like the year ahead and the year behind, it forced us to really come to terms with the culture of the program, and to start having some real conversations, and so I found myself having to sort of step out of my comfort zone, and have difficult conversations, but like I said, sometimes, sitting on my hands and saying nothing doesn't help. And I just can't do that. I can't do that. Like, I'm so proud that the program is where it's at now. I know I mentioned to you all when I first came in, Omar was the only Black male. Now, because of a whole lot of reasons, the program, and this is the most diverse that this program has ever been. And it's so good. It's so good to see that. But all of us carry a measure of responsibility, whether we want to pick up that torch or not. Sometimes, I think we're going to find ourselves, and I say we just because, all of us on this call, right? Yeah. We have to engage.
So that kind of takes me to all, your experience probably is what brought you to do the research that you did.
Yep.
Right? Like, all of the things that you have kind of told us about brings us to, like, what made you decide to do this research. So can you tell us, some about the research that you've done? And
Yeah. So I'll say this, I wasn't so explicit about this at the time that I was writing it, and it wasn't until my colloquium where I openly acknowledged it. But that my DP was me telling my story. But I did it in a roundabout way. So what I did was I designed a qual study, and I found 12 Black male executive leaders that in some instances are leaders for global organizations to sit down with me and share their narrative, share their story, talk about their trajectory. And the takeaway was sort of uncovering the steps that organizations should consider in their effort to create spaces where particularly Black men feel psychologically safe. So there's a lot there. As a construct, I looked at emotional intelligence, and I decided to play around with some words, and actually came away coining the term organizational social architecture, because prior to this research, that term didn't exist. So social architecture was a thing, organizational architecture was a thing, but organizational social architecture was not. And so that was my way of taking a deeper dive into organizational culture and considering all of the components that are required to establish these healthy organizational cultures.
And so what do you do with that research now?
So, wow, this DP just won't die. It just won't die. I'm like, I feel like I'm watching a horror, movie, and like the monster just keeps coming back, right? So
like The Ring.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Wow,
that movie messed me up. The Ring, yeah.
One of my favorites. That's a classic. But yeah. So okay, so what am I doing right now? I am turning it into a workshop.
You gotta love technology, I'm telling you.
Oh, I was like, oh man, I thought that was just me.
No. He's coming back, guys.
Don't go. Don't look into the light.
Stay with us.
Hold on.
Oh, there he is.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. And we're back.
And we're back. So workshops in executive coaching. And so I was able to turn it into the journal article, the issue that the article is in, one issue of the year for 2021. Yeah. I'm real proud of that. And so the firm that I'm at now, that I work at now, has asked me to develop the research into tools that we can use for some of the organizations that we work with.
Love that. That's so awesome.
Without giving away the secret sauce here, because we want these workshops to be very profitable for you. But I heard you also talk about, being a part of a system within, your academic journey that you didn't really feel like was prepared for you as a African-American male, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if there was one thing you would encourage organizations to consider, what would that be in trying to create psychologically safe organizations for people of color?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm coming off of 2 organizational assessments, right? Both of these organizations are global organizations.
Yeah.
We came away with, I say we because it was myself and there was another consultant on the project. We have 9 recommendations that we're going to be giving to each of these organizations based on the org assessment.
Gotcha.
For in both instances, the common theme that surfaced across the board: mentorship or lack thereof. Organizations have to get better. It is critical that they devote more time, energy, and resources to creating opportunities for mentorship. All of these men that I interviewed said the same thing. Mentorship would have made such a big difference for them in their roles. I had this one guy who agreed to meet with me as long as he could keep his camera off. He didn't want to be seen, didn't want me to see his face, right? I had another guy 3 times during the interview asked me if this was confidential. Where's this information going? And who is this for again? I had to remind the guy 3 times, right? All of them talked about the absence of psych safety and what mentorship could have done to prepare them for the environments that they're in now. So at a very basic fundamental level, we got to get better at creating opportunities. I get if you don't have another me, but what can you do to in position or put me in rooms with folks that look like me? There are networks of Black folks out there, right? Are organizations sponsoring, are they ready yet? Are they creating opportunities for me to engage with those networks in a meaningful way? Like carving out time in my schedule where I'm able to do that, where I'm able to attend conferences or workshops or whatever it is. So that's like at a very basic level, I think that'd be a really good start.
As you're talking, I'm just thinking about just the things that I'm involved in. It's like, oh yeah, we need some mentors for, even in the organization, young people coming in and assigning them mentors to be able to succeed, because, you come and you do the job that they hire you to do, but there's so much more that you can do. And there's so much more that you can be involved in, and you won't know that necessarily unless someone tells you, right? And so people aren't telling us things because we're just doing jobs, and so.
Yeah, very true. That's so true. Yeah. Like I felt like I was just kind of like I felt like I was like a leaf in the wind with just no support at various stages, in my along my trajectory. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Who is your fantasy mentor? So like mine's Brene Brown. Like she's my friend, my best friend, my fantasy best friend, and my fantasy, she's one of many, like John Maxwell, Brene Brown, Marissa Peer. She's a psychologist and from England. Who is yours?
So I would have to say there's a gentleman who I listen to often by the name of Eric Thomas.
Come on, Eric.
Yeah.
Love him.
He gives these talk. Yeah, he gives
What's
these
his name?
talk. Eric Thomas. Yeah, he gives these talks to the footage that I listen to is him talking to NFL teams. And so he has like a series of talks that he's done for these teams, but like it's deep.
It's so deep.
It's deep.
I listen to him every morning.
Eric Thomas.
He's amazing. Yeah.
Because I really feel like you can really, if you don't have a mentor in the meantime, there's so many people out there that through talks and interviews, like Oprah's my other one, love her. Maya Angelou is my other one. I just like have some mentors.
10. Like
I know. But yeah, I just feel like they've really helped me like evolve, and that's like the best thing. It's kind of like thanks to like social media and the internet, I have like all these people lined up, and there's like a buffet of leadership. I'm like, ooh, I like that. I'm going to take Brene Brown's, about her dare to leave and understanding more about being empathetic and removing my own shame so I can help other people with their shame. And then Maya Angelou, like learning about like her, just like her strength and her story, which is kind of similar to Oprah's in a little bit, and about like, I like Oprah. She talks about like, what is the next best thing? And I feel like I'm in a stage in my life where I'm like, I don't know anymore what the next 10 years looks like. So I just need to figure out what is the next best thing. Yeah. So I feel like I'm not saying that there's no excuse to not have a mentor, but I am saying that there is no excuse to not receive free wisdom that you can get from social media.
I hear you. And like, so for my part, like I collect quotes. So my phone is full of like motivational quotes. I have like my Eric Thomas videos. I have my like.
You got one by
There you
Dr.
go.
Rubel? Gotcha.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
I love it.
yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Like I in moments when, you know, and I certainly had my share as a student in the OLP program when things got really tough. I would lean on these video clips. I would lean on these quotes. You know, it's so important. Like we have to watch. We have to watch what we expose ourselves to. Are we exposing ourselves to things that are building us up? You know, even the kind of music that I listen to has evolved and shifted, because I got to a place where I was like I'm always going to love hip hop, but I had to get to a place where I understood like what messages am I feeding myself, right? And
So
yeah,
good.
yeah, because it matters. You're only going to get out what you put in.
Absolutely. You have an amazing journey. You have an amazing story. The things that you have gone through, I always believe a lot of things that we go through is for someone else, not necessarily just for ourselves. And so by you sharing all this stuff on this show and all the other places that you talk, like you're making a huge impact on other people by the things that you've experienced yourself to make their lives better. And we appreciate you coming here. Latoya, Ashley, do you have any other questions? Dr. Rudel, did you have anything else that you wanted to share with us?
Other than I want to thank you all for inviting me into your space. I knew I would have a good time. I am on a little mini speaking tour right now for the research, and I have a talk coming up Friday on a podcast. Man, I don't even remember the show. But you know what? I will send you all the information if you happen to be around. Feel free to join. It's Friday at 11 a.m. I'll be doing a deep dive talking about the research and talking explicitly about what organizations can do to do better at maintaining employees of color.
Awesome. Love that.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Lavanya so eloquently said, not just us, but many others who will hear this are deeply enriched by having heard your story and learning about your research. So thank you.
Yeah, just to echo that,
Thank you.
I now have a new quote. So I like that, like, we don't have the luxury of saying nothing, and I think like right now, like it's everything going on, like with Russia and the Ukraine, it's just like, it's just been very eye-opening to see the world coming together from all echelons of government and businesses. And it's just, when you said like, we don't have the luxury of saying nothing, it just reminded me of like how real that is on every single day. And so I just appreciated that. So you kind of gave me permission to still be really talkative. So if someone's just like, freaking Ashley just won't shut up, I'd be like, well, Dr. Rudel told me to talk.
Keep talking.
So I don't know if I'm going to do a good job with marketing you, but
I love it. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Now,
Thank you.
Not gonna be quiet.
Thank you.
And
I know, right?
You're welcome on our show anytime that you would like to come and join us.
Thank you. And I would love to do it again, man. Like I would love to I'd love to come back. No, this was fun. I knew it would be. But thank you all again. I appreciate all of you for what you're doing. It's been a pleasure getting to know each of you. Ashley, it's nice to meet you. And you two already are stuck with me for the next few months. But it has been a pleasure getting to know the both of you. And yeah, so let's do it again sometime.
I am one of your hosts, Ashley Parrish. Let's try it again, because it's not my last name. Parrish. I just got married, so I'm still working out the last name thing. Okay, action.